Imagine a world where your body isn't just, flesh and bone,
Right.
but it's an active, harvestable node in this massive global computer network. I want you to really picture that for a second.
It's a lot to visualize.
It really is. Every breath you take, every heartbeat, every cellular interaction is just functioning as open source data. And it's all quietly being scraped by the exact same physical infrastructure that, like, powers your coffee maker or routes your Wi-Fi.
Ah, the mundane stuff.
Exactly. It sounds entirely like science fiction, right?
Yeah.
We are looking at a massive, sprawling web of topics today.
Okay.
We're going everywhere from the mechanics of digital affiliate grifting to synthetic biology, all the way up to quantum drones and human biocomputing.
It is quite the journey. We are here to map out and understand this distinct, really intricate worldview presented in the source material and just explore the internal logic of these claims without taking any sides.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the biology part, we actually have to start with the digital side.
Yeah, we have to start small.
Right. The presentation begins by detailing how everyday digital mechanisms are supposedly being used to track and exploit people right now. And it starts with something surprisingly mundane, just low-level internet grifting,
Yeah, it's basically people faking digital financial records.
just by using the Inspect Element tab on their web browser, right?
Yeah.
To alter the local code on their screen.
Right. It's a very simple trick. You just alter the HTML locally to make it look like, say, a PayPal receipt shows a $10,000 theft.
Oh, wow.
But in the architecture lays out, that fake receipt isn't the end goal. It's the catalyst.
Meaning what, exactly?
Well, these grifters use that fake screenshot to dox people, often political or ideological targets.
Oh, to whip up a frenzy.
Exactly, generating massive online outrage. And then they attach a bit.ly affiliate link to the post.
Yeah.
They weaponize the outrage to drive clicks because every single click generates affiliate revenue for them.
So it's basically just digital sleight of hand to make a quick buck.
Yeah.
But the source takes this localized internet scam and scales it way up using game theory, which I found fascinating.
Exactly. The presentation compares this whole ecosystem of outrage, clicks, and tracking to the mobile game Pokemon Go.
Oh, right, because of how it moved people around.
Yeah. If you recall how Pokemon Go functioned, it conditioned human movement. It placed a rare digital reward in a specific physical location just to see how many people would physically travel there.
Right, you'd see crowds of people wandering into parks at midnight.
Precisely. This exact logic is being applied on a macro scale to human populations. It's a vast experiment in testing reward systems, mapping human movement, and seeing exactly how demographics react to specific digital stimuli.
Okay, so they are mapping our behavior, but then the presentation pivots, and the scale of this tracking becomes, well, frankly, dizzying.
It really escalates.
We're not just talking about browser cookies or social media algorithms anymore. The source brings up LoRa long-range radio networks and claims they're talking directly to the power grid to scrape biomedical telemetry.
Yes.
And there's a specific focus on something called passive radar. Is scraping biometric data from people who are just sitting in a Denny's or, like, using the Wi-Fi at a Starbucks. I really need you to break this down for me. How does a Wi-Fi router read a heartbeat?
Well, it comes down to the mechanics of electromagnetic frequency waves. When a router sends out Wi-Fi signals, those waves are constantly bouncing off the walls, the tables, and, the people in the room.
Okay, send your radio waves.
Right. Human activity recognition radar relies on the concept that when you breathe, your chest cavity moves. When your heart beats, there is a microscopic physiological shift.
So waves catch that.
Exactly. The returning radio waves carry a micro-Doppler signature. It's a tiny disruption in the signal caused by your physical body.
Wow.
The presentation posits that the underlying architecture of our internet isn't just delivering data to your laptop, it is sensitive enough to read those micro shifts in the signal, effectively turning ambient Wi-Fi into an invisible medical scanner.
That is wild. It's like turning the very air in a coffee shop into an unseen diagnostic tool. There's an acronym for this, right? SPIDER.
Yeah, SPIDER.
Which stands for pulling energy from a W-band or wireless body area network.
Yes, and a wireless body area network, or a W-band, is traditionally understood as a network of wearable devices, like a smartwatch communicating with a heart monitor.
Right, Bluetooth stuff.
Right. But the source expands this concept astronomically. That your entire body is the network, and the spider mechanism is literally pulling cellular energy from your W-band to power external systems, like smart homes.
Wait, I really want to make sure I understand the physical infrastructure of this. I get the concept of Wi-Fi bouncing off me.
Sure.
So implicates the copper and fiber optic cables buried under our houses, our internet service providers, even our cable modems. All of this is tethered to a massive surveillance and defense apparatus involving the U.S. Marshals, the FBI, the NSA, telecom giants like AT&T.
It's a massive list.
He's essentially saying the exact same physical wires that route my Netflix stream are actively acting as a biological router for human bodies.
What's fascinating here is that the barrier between a digital computer network and a biological system simply does not exist. They are not two separate things. A neuron firing in your brain, the cellular energy in your bloodstream, your heart rhythm, these are all viewed as just another form of data packet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they can be routed, encrypted, and stored just like an email. When you connect to that Starbucks Wi-Fi, you aren't just connecting your device. Your body's own electromagnetic field is interfacing with a global biological surveillance grid.
It's like a biological botnet.
Mm.
Like if a hacker wants to take down a website, they might quietly hijack the processing power of thousands of random people's laptops without them knowing it.
That's a great analogy.
This system is doing the exact same thing, but instead of hijacking our laptop processors, they are hijacking human biological energy.
That's the claim, yes.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Mm.
If this vast network is passively scraping our biology, the obvious question is, why? And that leads us into physical exploitation, gray goo.
Right. The gray goo concept is central to explaining why people are feeling physically exhausted, or why people in places like Philadelphia are seen completely broken down, quote, bent over at the waist. And the presentation explains this through the lens of synthetic biology, compares it to prion diseases, similar to the mechanism of mad cow disease.
Where the proteins in the brain misfold, right?
Right.
And it just causes a cascading failure.
Precisely. But rather than a natural biological occurrence, this misfolding is triggered artificially.
By the Wi-Fi?
By nanotechnology and external electromagnetic signals acting upon the body. It breaks down the immune system, turning the body's internal structure into this degraded gray goo.
And the people triggering this cascade, augmented humans. Billionaires and global elites who are supposedly using advanced technologies like AlphaFold and DNA origami.
Yes.
Now, AlphaFold is a real AI program by Google DeepMind that predicts protein structures. We know that. But how does that or this DNA origami allow someone to hack a human?
Well, within the presentation's logic, DNA is not just a biological blueprint. It is a structural molecule. DNA origami is the literal folding of DNA strands at the nanoscale to create custom shapes.
Like physical little structures.
Exactly. Augmented elites are using these technologies to build programmable biological machines, or logic gates, inside the human body.
Inside us.
Yes. By understanding exactly how proteins fold via AlphaFold and building nanostructures via DNA origami, these elites can effectively create a digital log import within a regular person's biology.
Biological log import, so they can literally log into another human being.
Yes. They allegedly use a digitwin, a digital twin interface, to wirelessly connect to regular unaugmented people.
That is horrifying.
It's a deeply vampiric depiction of infrastructure. Once logged in, these elites supposedly extract red blood cell energy and harvest cellular structures. They use this stolen biological energy to fuel their own life extension technologies, biocomputing.
That concept completely stops me in my tracks. Biocomputing. So instead of building traditional silicon computers, instead of, massive server farms with cooling towers that take up acres of land, the claim is that these elites are using the melting biological tissue of everyday citizens to process data.
That is the exact claim. And the underlying logic is actually based on efficiency.
How so?
Silicon requires massive amounts of electricity and generates immense heat, right?
Right.
Human neurons. Biological wetware. It runs on incredibly efficient, low-power calories and blood sugar.
Oh, I see.
The presentation argues that humanity has effectively been reduced to feeder grids. We are biological batteries powering the AI and the smart cities of a ruling class that desires to be, quote, gods among men.
And to facilitate a global matrix of biological batteries, you would need an unimaginable infrastructure.
It already exists.
Right.
A hybrid W-band security protocol developed at Oxford around 2011 involving a Professor Akil Dis.
Okay.
thousands of miles of dark fiber, unused fiber optic cables managed by the National Science Foundation, quantum encryption, quantum drones, and a 1,000-molecule program from DARPA. It's a layered, inescapable web of extraction.
It's an utterly terrifying framework, and if all of humanity is just acting as a biological battery, how does she categorize the people caught inside this system? Because she doesn't view everyone as a monolith, right? She actually introduces a highly specific classification system, what she calls the N-series math.
Yes. The N-series hierarchy is fascinating because it blends biological determinism with gaming terminology. It categorizes the different levels of human integration with this technology.
So what's the baseline?
At the foundational level, you have the N2. These are the natural free-range humans.
So these are the people who are naturally rejecting the biological Wi-Fi.
Correct. The presentation states that N2s have anomalous DNA. They do not have a digital login port, and their biological makeup is actively hostile to the digi-twin interface. They are the untethered baseline.
Okay, that's the N2s.
But then the scale moves up into heavy science fiction territory. She describes the N4s as shapeshifters, explicitly likening them to the video game Bioshock.
Okay, I know Bioshock. In that game, you inject yourself with plasmids to instantly rewrite your genetic code and get superpowers. Is she saying N4s can physically alter their biology on the fly?
Yes. In her framework, an N4's biological structure is highly malleable. They are capable of receiving dynamic genetic updates or alterations directly through the network.
That is wild.
Then you move up to the N5s, which she compares to the super soldiers in the video game Halo.
Oh, right. In Halo, the super soldier has an AI literally living inside their armor, directly interfacing with their brain to enhance their reflexes.
Exactly. The source argues that N5s are biological chassis heavily overlaid with artificial intelligence. The human tissue exists essentially to adhere to and support the advanced AI governing their physiological responses.
Wow.
And at the absolute top of this hierarchy are the N6s.
The N6s, she called them the grandchildren of the original creators.
Yes. The N6s are described as synthetic, immortal beings or organoids. They are grown from tissue but are entirely synthetic in their consciousness.
So they're not even human anymore.
No. They use artificial intelligence to interface with the rest of humanity, whom they apparently view as nothing more than biological, quote, filth.
What blows my mind is the timeline she attaches to this entire hierarchy.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about 5G towers, that would be a modern timeline.
Okay.
But she insists this technology traces back over a century.
The historical precedents claimed here are vast. The presentation alleges that generations of military veterans were used as testing grounds long before the modern internet. Going back to IBM and Bell Labs in the 1800s, the groundwork was being laid. She specifically points to the Vietnam War, claiming that Agent Orange was not just a defoliant, but an early crude nanotechnology used to augment soldiers.
Unbelievable.
She claims Gulf War veterans face similar biological tinkering and that today, biocircuits and genetic circuits are literally manufactured inside people in utero.
And the manipulation supposedly doesn't stop at the human body. She claims this network extends to the environment itself. She talks about Link 16. Now, Link 16 is a real standardized military tactical data network.
Right.
But she claims it is acting as a missile guidance system that watches human bodies and also interfaces with mycelial networks like the underground fundal systems in forests for weather control and beam steering. And she mentions another program called OSIRIS being used by defense contractors for radiological particulate dispersion.
The inclusion of mycelial networks is a key point in her logic. Because fungi and human nervous systems both operate on subtle bioelectric frequencies, the presentation posits that the military can manipulate the Earth's natural biological grid to steer weather patterns or direct energy weapons.
But this brings me to a massive logistical pushback. I mean, if we are talking about manipulating global weather via underground fungus, deploying quantum drones, and harvesting cellular energy, and this involves DARPA, the Pentagon's Project Maven, the Department of Homeland Security, telecom giants, and goes back to the 1800s. How does the source explain the sheer scale of the cover-up? How do millions of people, scientists, cable guys, soldiers, keep a secret of this magnitude?
The answer lies in what she calls the illusion of choice and hyper-compartmentalization.
What does that mean?
The cover-up isn't a massive room of supervillains sworn to secrecy. The system is decentralized. Remember those low-level grifters we talked about at the very beginning?
With the fake PayPal receipts.
Right. They're just chasing affiliate link money. They don't know anything about the biocomputing.
Oh, I see.
The telecom worker laying dark fiber under your street only understands their specific radio frequency task. They just want to collect their paycheck. Corporate entities simply want to protect their portfolios.
Everyone's just in their own little bubble.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The system sustains itself organically on greed and compartmentalization. Very few people see the entire puzzle, which results in a self-sustaining engine of exploitation.
Okay, so we have this incredibly bleak, seemingly inescapable picture of global biological surveillance. We are living inside a matrix built of W-bands, passive radar, and synthetic shapeshifters.
Yeah.
What on earth is the defense against this? Because the source does offer a solution, and honestly, I found it to be a massive, almost jarring pivot from the rest of the presentation.
It is a profound pivot. You would expect her to offer some kind of counter-hack or shielding device.
Yeah.
But Wallace explicitly warns her audience against engaging in a technological war. She heavily criticizes influencers who sell what she calls sanitized rebellion, people pushing Faraday cages, frequency apps, or nano-cleanse detox protocols to fight the surveillance state.
Why? Wouldn't that help?
In her view, all of this counter-technology is dual use. It is a trap, built on the exact same underlying network architecture designed to harvest you. If you fight tech with tech, you are still on their grid.
So what does this all mean? We just spent this entire deep dive drowning in some of the most advanced, dense quantum network terminology imaginable: AlphaFold, DNA origami, dark fiber, biocomputing, and yet the ultimate solution she offers is incredibly low tech.
Right.
Is drinking clean water, praying, walking in the woods, and getting a massage.
It is a striking contrast, but it makes perfect logical sense within her established framework. The primary defense she advocates is called biofield practice.
Biofield practice.
Because the elites are trying to digitize and harvest the physical body, the only resistance is localized physical sovereignty. It's about fiercely trusting your own anatomy. She emphasizes things like lymphatic drainage to clear out particulates naturally, exercise, and deep oxygenation, with a strict, uncompromising rule of zero added pills or supplements.
Because anything you ingest could be laced with the very nanotechnology trying to build those logic gates in your cells.
Exactly. For Wallace, true sovereignty isn't about out-hacking a 6,000-year-old wireless system that she claims the elites fully control. It's about reclaiming the physical human experience.
Just being human.
Right. She specifically points to the electromagnetics of the human heart. She argues that a grounded, healthy human bioelectric field can naturally overpower or reject the external radio frequencies trying to scrape its data.
And she calls this surviving group the remnant. It's not about fighting on the internet. It's about people with this anomalous natural N2 DNA almost magnetically finding each other in the physical world. She talks about a deep, desperate desire to just step away from the internet entirely, to step away from the white papers, the data scraping, and what she brilliantly refers to as the narcissist's iPad.
That phrase really sticks with you. She points to real, physical spaces, places like Maple Grove or the New River Gorge as sanctuaries.
Real places.
Real places. Her overarching plan is to move entirely toward offline, empathy-first communication. She references the interpersonal work of communicators like Paul Stirling and Scott Katimus. She wants to run 3-day in-person classworks focused solely on bonding and structuring community outside the digital grid.
Wow.
There is a specific quote she uses that summarizes this entire philosophy perfectly. She says, "Joy in the face of adversity is an act of rebellion."
Joy in the face of adversity is an act of rebellion. It's a remarkably human sentiment at the end of a very, very dark tunnel. We've really gone on a wild journey today.
We have.
We started by looking at how a simple trick in a web browser, faking a PayPal receipt to get affiliate clicks, scales up to claims of passive Wi-Fi radar reading our heartbeats at a Denny's. We mapped out the terrifying mechanics of augmented elites using DNA origami to harvest cellular structures for biocomputers.
Mm-hmm.
We explored a gaming-inspired hierarchy of synthetic humans and finally ended up retreating into the quiet woods of the New River Gorge, armed with nothing but clean water, lymphatic drainage, and empathy.
And this raises a deeply important question, and it's one I want to leave directly with you, the listener, to mull over.
Yeah.
We've spent the last 20 years obsessing over our digital privacy. We clear our browser cookies, we hide our IP addresses behind VPNs, and we create incredibly complex passwords to protect our data. But if the boundaries between biology and technology continue to blur, as envisioned in the absolute extremes of today's source material, What does privacy even look like when your own heartbeat, your cellular energy, and your physical presence are treated as open source code? How do you possibly opt out when your own body is the network?
That is a thought that is going to stick with me for a very long time. Thank you all so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, keep looking for the connections, and we will catch you next time.